Welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. It's Rich here, and I'm here with Baz. So, Baz, 42 years since we're last in the European semi-final, 30 years since the Bayern Munich quarter-final, 4 managers this season, and after all of those European nights, away from home, in all kinds of exciting places, the semi-finals against a team from Birmingham. How are you feeling?
I'm actually nervous now. Obviously, we've gone with effectively the first team, but then you look at the bench and we didn't really have that much choice on that. So I'm kind of a little bit worried if we need to switch it up in the second half or something. But just have to see how it goes, isn't it?
And do you think that, I mean, we're the underdogs, and I don't know, I was on Radio 5 Live a bit earlier today, and I was saying, actually, I think that probably suits Forest. So do you think the same?
Absolutely, yeah. We always seem to play better when we're not expected to get anything.
So here's that interview with Chris Warburton on Radio 5 Live, and then we'll be back afterwards to discuss what happened in the match. Come on, you Reds.
This is their first semi-final of a European competition since 1984, whereas Villa are looking to end their 30-year trophy drought.
Well, let's speak to a couple of people who will probably be feeling excited and maybe a little bit nervous about all of this as well. Forest fan Rich Ferraro from the 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Hiya, Rich.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Rich. Always nice to talk to you. And also, we have an Aston Villa legend with us. It's always great to speak to Ian Taylor on big European nights like this. Hey, Ian.
How you doing, Chris? You okay?
Very good, mate. Very good. Look, let me ask each of you about such a rich European history for both of these clubs, right? Rich, what is that like to grow up as a fan and to know the history that's gone before in terms of Forest's European experiences? How much is that woven into the fan experience?
Oh, it's everything. It's everything. As someone of a certain middle age, I will point out that I was born around about the time that we won the European Cup twice. Last time we were in the semi-finals, we were literally cheated out of it by a dodgy ref. And 30 years ago, we watched Forest be the last English team standing in European competition, knocked out by the best team in Europe that season, Bayern Munich. So yeah, it's all the way through. And even the younger fans, they grow up with that as part of the heritage.
Yes, indeed. And Ian, I mean, you must have felt that European history as a player.
Yeah, well, just like Rich, I became a Villa fan around the time when Villa won the European Cup. So I know all about that as well. And I know how steep the club is in its history regarding that. It is a long time since we won a trophy, and I was lucky enough to be a winner of the last trophy. So there's a lot of talk about it around the club, and it's about time we won another one.
Yeah, and is there a feeling that the boss, Ian, Unai Emery, just knows, we know he knows what he's doing in these moments in Europe? Is there a feeling that, this is the man for this moment?
I think so. I think we've come close before. We've gone far in recent competitions, and we've got 2 ways of getting into the Champions League next year, and this is one of them. And you've got to say, playing against Forest over 2 legs, it's a great opportunity. But we know how Forest have been in recent weeks, so there is a little bit of trepidation, but you've got to go into it with confidence, I think.
Yes.
And I'm one who's very, very excited. You've caught me just before I'm leaving to go to the game, so
okay.
Very excited at the minute.
Good, excellent. I know you're always a bit of a cheerleader when you get there as well, aren't you, Ian? I know you're a sort of talisman when it comes to that kind of thing, which is no bad rep, is it? Let's be honest. Rich, in the respect of Ian's right. You know, you're on a great roll at the moment, aren't you? I mean, obviously Villa have had the better season, but in terms of form at the moment, you're hard to beat right now. How has the new boss got the side ticking again so well?
Well, firstly, we are the underdogs, and we know that. And actually, I think we quite like that. Earlier this week, we were having a bit of a conversation in our podcast group about, do vibes bring results, or do results bring vibes? And Forest, at their best, have always been about the vibes. And Vitor is bringing the vibes. He is quietly going about his job. Unlike Unai Emery, you couldn't have more of a contrast. Unai's been there. He's made the club run his way. He's very, very laser focused. Vitor's come come into a club which, quite frankly, has been chaotic for years, never mind just this season. And yes, so he's like going, let's get the players relaxed and let's just see what we can do, because we've got ability in that. Yes, he's got tactical awareness and he's got experience, and also crucially, he knows how to work with our owner. But the main thing is getting that team playing, running like a well-oiled machine and getting through the tough moments, and then striking while the iron is hot.
Okay, well, look, we'll let you both get on with it. All right, Ian, and to Rich as well. And good luck tonight. Enjoy it if you can. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
The 1865 Match Report.
Well, it's Rich Ferrara here from 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. That went better than I could have hoped. It was a proper match of football between two proper teams, and in the end decided by a VAR call. I'm just walking out of the ground now. I have no idea really what happened. It was down the far end from me. I think it's also a match which was typified by goalkeepers making saves. Ortega had to make 2 or 3 good saves. Martínez made, well, they say lightning doesn't strike twice, and it was exactly the same as that crazy save he made against Dominguez at the City Ground last season. Don't know how he did it. But anyway, we've got a victory. We've got something to take with us to Villa Park next week. Come on, you Reds. Right, so we are back at home, and it's been a big night for Forest. And normally with these match reports, Baz, we do each half in turn and we talk about tactics and so on. But this is just really one where it's all about the feels, isn't it? The match was characterised by two teams really providing a great advert for the Premier League, and I was thinking during the match, what a contrast to last season's Europa League final between Spurs and Man United, which was one of the worst matches ever. And anyone tuning into this one will have seen exactly why the Premier League is a great league. They'll have seen craft, guile, graft, hard tackles, everything. And I have to say, although Villa probably had more efforts on goal, Forest were the deserved winners on the night, I thought.
Like the Villa game before. So that game as well, I thought we were the better side, even though if you just watch the highlights, you'd have thought it was all Villa. I think even though they probably had they had the better chances, they had more of the ball, but we kind of controlled the game. It was really, really congested. It wasn't like slick pass and move kind of stuff. It was like pass the ball, run into someone, fight them off, maybe keep it, maybe lose the duel, and then run into someone else all the way through. It was a bit of a slog in places, but it was exciting.
Yeah, and I think that thing you said about control, so both teams, when they had the ball, were trying to almost slow things down, especially in the first half. They always tried to slow things down a little bit. And it's notable, for example, that every time Villa had a goal kick, Martínez was taking an edge right from the first few minutes of the game, because it was about, Villa's style of play has got a lot of energy conservation in there, having a rest and all of that kind of stuff. We haven't mentioned the teams yet. I think it's worth just quickly running through. So we had Ortega in goal, Aina at right back, Williams at left back, Milenkovic and Morato at centre half, Hutchinson on the right, Gibbs White in the kind of left 10 role, Anderson partnered by Dominguez, because no Sangare either, and then Igor Jesus obviously just off Chris Wood. And worth noting as well that the bench was looking a bit youthful.
Yeah, so the Sangare, Undoy, Murillo, obviously, having those quality players out leaves us a little bit sparse. So yeah, when it came to experienced defenders on the bench, it was Zach Abbott.
Yes. For Villa's team news, the main thing to note was that Amadou Onana was a doubt, and he played for the first half and a bit of the second half before he had to succumb to that. But apart from that, they put out a pretty strong team. But we'll talk about some of those key protagonists, because I think it's fair to say that before the match, we're thinking about the Gibbs White versus Matty Cash matchup, weren't we? And we're going, okay, that could be an interesting one. But the decisive moment in the game overall was actually Matty Cash's counterpart at left back, Lucas Digne. And let's just talk about this first because it was just over halfway through the second half, and a really, really, really good time for Forest to score because of a number of reasons. Obviously, it meant that whole thing of controlling the match and Villa having to kind of try and chase it, I suppose, even though it's only, first leg. But also, crucially, the Villa fans were making great noise. The atmosphere in the ground was fabulous all the way through. But the goal shut them up.
Yeah.
They had nothing after that.
And I think as well, as I said, Villa had more of the ball. I think they were just starting to gain some control in the game as well. So actually scoring at that point took the wind out of the players' sails a bit as well. It was, just the right time for us, I think.
So it's a curious one, isn't it? Now, due to reasons, we weren't in our usual seats, and I was in the lower Brian Clough, basically at ball boy level, very near to the away fans, and you were in the lower Trent end. So this incident happened right in front of you, but you said you didn't get a good view because people had stood up just at a crucial moment.
So I was like on the second bank of seats, sort of just to the left of the goal. So it was right in front of me, but everyone stood up at just that moment. So I could see that his hands were in the air, and I could see Amari protesting about it, and everyone in front of me was shouting for handball. So I thought, it's quite likely that it was a handball then, because it was just in front and I could see his arms up in the air.
And I have to say that, so I had no idea. Basically, I saw that the ball went across. I saw that Amari and Digne were going for it, and I saw that the ball obviously went out, and the linesman was putting his flag towards the box for a goal kick. The referee saw the linesman do that. He kind of said, yep, goal kick, the ball had gone out of play. And in one of my group chats, actually, one of my friends did say, this is VAR doing what it's there for. It spotted something that the linesman and the ref couldn't because of the position of Amari's body. He couldn't reasonably make a decision whether the whole of the ball was over the whole of the line. The referee, because of the angle he was at, probably couldn't either, and therefore VAR intervened. And it's not like any other penalty I've ever seen given, but it was... it probably was the right decision, wasn't it?
From the replay, it looks like the right decision. And as I say, everyone in front of me thought it was the right decision.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're biased, but...
Yeah, there is that. But I'll go back to something I've said on this podcast before. If you wave your arms about in the box and the ball hits it, you can't be surprised if a penalty is given against you.
And having seen the replay as well, it's like, what were his arms doing there?
Yeah.
There was no need for him to have them up there.
Yeah. And we saw something that we've seen before as well, which was Morgan go and get the ball and kind of make it out like he was going to take the penalty, presumably so that if there was any sledging going on by Villa players, especially Martínez, who's obviously, frankly, an S-house, that it would be at Morgan. And I wasn't surprised, but I was very pleased when I saw him give the ball to Chris Wood, because I cannot think of any other player of the 22 men on the pitch that you would trust with a penalty in that situation more than Chris Wood.
Absolutely, and it was a rocket.
Superb penalty. This is a mix of power and precision and technique, and Chris Wood in his post-match interview said, I did the things that I'd practiced for, and I was a bit worried that Colin Fray was going to ask him to give away some of his secrets, and he just goes, no, I did what I practiced for, and Martínez got everything right.
Yeah.
If Martínez had got a hand to it, it would have been an incredible save because he had power on it. But when you hit it with power, with height, and it hits the side netting, Martínez is one of the best keepers in the world, and he couldn't save it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just go on and talk about a few other bits and pieces then, because there were moments of controversy, some of which I think are a little bit manufactured. So let's talk about Unai Emery, who did what I can only describe as a very prickly post-match interview with TNT, and he was hamming it up full Pep style, wasn't he?
The tackle in question, Anderson on Watkins, I've not seen it back. It was
And
kind
the TNT highlights didn't show it on
No.
when we just looked at them.
It was kind of in a straight line in front of me. I thought it was a rough tackle. He went in hard on him, but I thought he got the ball, and then Watkins just sort of went down and was complaining, and there was I'd say a word for the referee. The referee didn't want to give anything all game. He just let it flow and only stopped it. I think there was, you said there was only Tielemans that got a card. He only stopped it if he really had to. So barges, there was a few things that I thought were a bit over the line that the referee just let flow anyway. So the fact that Anderson goes in hard on him and Watkins is on the floor, I thought, well, that's just more of the same. It's more like, he got barged. He's complaining about it because he thought on another day with a different ref, you would have got a free kick for it.
But having said that, the ref didn't give it. He didn't even give a foul. So that gives VAR the permission to say, actually, was there a potential red?
Because that's what happened with Chris Wood the other week, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it didn't flash up for potential red cards. So VAR probably looked at it and thought, no, it's fine. And it was a match of hard tackles. And I was okay with that. I was okay with the ref's performance. There were a couple of times when, so you mentioned in the second half, there was I think it's between Digne and Ollie. And
Ollie went off injured because of that tackle.
Yeah,
that's how hard it was.
But just because there's contact doesn't necessarily mean it's a foul. And the ref was consistent with that all the way through. Like you say, he didn't want to stop the game unnecessarily. When he gave Tielemans the yellow card, it was one of those where it's a mix of the ref not having any choice because of the type of foul it was, and also because the ref was kind of asserting his control. And I think that was on like 60 minutes or something like that. So it's one of those whereby, I don't think Tielemans can complain. So I also want to just... Tielemans' yellow card was on 78 minutes. So the fact that we got to that point without any yellow cards being given...
in a very tough physical game.
Yeah. And Watkins... So when that happened, I was surprised it wasn't given as a foul. But I was also surprised at the level of anger by Emery. And Steve Hodge pointed out on Radio Nottingham... this could actually be Emery using all his years of experience as a Europa League specialist. And this is his way of putting pressure on the officials for next week. Because the way he went absolutely crazy about it, and he was saying, fine, if the ref doesn't give it, no, but what's VAR doing, and so on. So is it a bit of manufactured outrage for the purpose of the second leg?
He's that kind of manager, though, isn't he? He goes off on one in his post-match interviews quite often, I think. So, maybe if he's doing it for effect, fair play to him. But it could also just be he's incensed. We've all had games where we come back after the game and we're like incensed at the referee's performance, and then you watch it back a couple of days later and you think, actually, that wasn't as bad as I thought.
And also, I suspect that, bearing in mind we're at the semi-final stage in a competition where whichever team wins this semi-final will be the favourites to win the final, I suspect that Emery's also going, fine, if they fine me €10,000 or whatever, I'll take that if it gives us a chance of progressing. Also worth noting that Watkins then had a go back at Anderson a little bit later on, and that's the one, actually, of all the things that happened in the match, that's the one where I thought, that's a yellow card. That's a clear, because he did it very clearly and obviously after the ball had gone, and the ref just kind of went over to him and he made that kind of sweeping gesture to kind of say, that's it, enough.
Yeah.
So he knew that it was retribution, and he didn't want to give a yellow card for that. So it's like, it's a physical game. That's the case. That's not even the highlight of the first half, though, and we'll talk a bit more about that one in just a sec.
The 1865 Match Report.
Okay, Baz, let's talk about the two goalkeepers, because both of them were outstanding today. Ortega had to make an early save from a drive by Tielemans, which was relatively routine. Morgan Rogers had an effort after about 12 minutes, something like that. And that was a a much better save because it's arcing towards the bottom corner. Ortega didn't just save it, but he pushed it away, which meant that there was no rebound opportunity. And so those are two decent saves by Forest's. I was going to say Spanish keeper. I keep forgetting he's German.
Yeah.
So
I just want to, as well, in the first half, because obviously it was all right in front of me, there was a point where a cross comes in from our left, their right. Ortega sort of tipped it, and I think it was Buendia maybe, and Ola. It goes over Buendia. He's only short. Ola, as it's coming in, you can see on his face, he's like, what am I going to do with this? And he just heads it back the way it came, really cheekily, back over Buendia, and Ortega catches it.
yes, you were saying from the pre-match pressers that Ola seems happy again.
Yes, well, maybe not by the end of the game,
No.
but yes, in the press conference, he did it with Vitor, and apart from the fact that Vitor was just giggling all the way through Ola's answers, Ola seemed like in a really, really good mood.
Yeah.
He seemed really happy. We saw some little clips on the training ground beforehand, and he was doing his little dances and stuff like that. And I've not seen him act like that since it was him, Callum, and Elanga last season.
Let's talk then about Ortega's big save in the second half, where it was actually the ball was driven into the box. Watkins stuck a leg out, as strikers do, and on the one hand you could say, well, it was kind of straight at him. On the other, you could say Ortega not only had good positioning, but he had good reflexes because he just stuck his arm out just like that and parried it away. If you haven't seen a replay yet, then think about Brice Samba's last penalty save against Morgan Gibbs-White against Sheffield United in that playoff semi-final, where he just stuck out an arm, and it was neatly saved. And that's the thing. Everything Ortega did tonight was neat.
Yes, and the other thing, I thought he had an absolutely immense game. Obviously, coming from Manchester City, it meant that every time the ball came back to him, Villa did want to press high, and they tried to cut the passing lane. So there was a point in the first half where the ball kept on coming back to Ortega, and he'd play it to one of the centre-backs, and there would be nowhere for it to go. So it'd come back, and it'd come back, and then suddenly Ortega, he puts in like a Sangare type, straight through the middle kind of pass to release Anderson, who then took it up the other end of the pitch. He was so calm and collected and capable. He was a fantastic performance from him.
Yes, and he's proving to be a very, very, very good signing. Yes, he's only playing in the Europa League matches at the moment, which is a bit unfortunate for him. But actually, I cannot think of, we've got two very capable goalkeepers, but Ortega is really showing what we've not had since Henderson or maybe Navas, perhaps.
Navas may be closer because he's not a shouter. And he's not like he was commanding without dominating everything.
Yeah, that kind of quiet respect.
Yeah,
and you can tell the defenders feel secure with him. I mean, they do with Sells as well, but there's a level, isn't there? So
they were saying on the radio afterwards, it's like if we make it to the final, which is still an if because it's only half time. But yeah, do you put your first choice keeper Sells in, or do you stick with the Europa League keeper? And in my head, Ortega isn't a reserve keeper. We've got two number ones now.
And they drew the comparison between Kepa Arrizabalaga playing in the Carabao Cup final. Kepa is very clearly number two goalkeeper at Arsenal, and Arteta wanted to give him a chance, which he spectacularly blew. This is different.
Yeah.
This is very, very different. And Ortega, if we get to the final, has to play.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Let's talk about the goalkeeper at the other end, because last season, when Forest played Villa at home, they got a win with two late goals, but it came is one of those matches where for most of the game you're going, it's just not going to happen. And one of the reasons we thought that was because Emi Martínez made one of the most incredible saves ever from Nico Dominguez where it was short distance out. Dominguez poked it past him. The ball actually went past him. He managed to smother it, pivot his entire body at the same time, and keep it out. And they say lightning doesn't strike twice. It totally did, because nice bit of play by Forest. The ball goes out to Morgan on the left-hand side. Rather than just driving it across the goal, he spots Igor Jesus, and Igor makes good contact with it from 6 yards out. Good power. And somehow Martinez does exactly the same thing again.
Yeah, this is the thing with both those saves, is the ball goes behind Martinez, and somehow he manages to scoop his arm behind it and pull it away before it crosses the line. It was, to see it twice is quite amazing.
And twice against us.
Yeah,
at the City ground.
At the City ground.
Like, it's.
And I was that in this game. I was behind the Trent end goal, so it was right up the other end.
Yeah.
And everyone in the Trent end stood up and started cheering because we thought we couldn't understand how it hadn't crossed the line.
No, I mean, I had a really, really good view of it. I was almost level with it. Everyone was stood up, and it's one of those as well whereby the Villa fans were stood up because they couldn't believe how it hadn't gone in. You could see, if you look at the replay, that everyone in the Bridgeford thinks it's gone in as well. It's just incredible, and incredible exactly the same thing has happened again. And so lots and lots of big moments, a big game, a massive result, even though it's only half time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec.
The 1865 match report.
So if we've heard about what Emery said afterwards, and whether he's genuinely angry or whether he's protecting his players or putting pressure on the officials for next week, I'm not quite sure. We know it's not over, but you mentioned about how Ola seemed happy, and in the pre-match presser, Vitor was giggling a lot. He was still pretty chucklesome in today's post-match interview. He said, they're a very tough team, but we competed with them. We're only together for a short time compared to Villa. It's a good fight. I'm very competitive. And he talked about the privilege about working with this bunch of players, and how actually they've shown a lot of resilience in a season where they've had 4 managers. And again, talking the stuff he's talked about, mentality, spirit, character, and of course the fans, because I think it's worth saying once again that the atmosphere was crackling all the way through. And especially once Forest got that goal, shut the Villa fans up. But Forest fans, I think it's another one of those nights where we helped get those players over the line.
So they made a triple substitution, and they put Jadon Sancho on, Ian Maatsen, and who else was it?
They moved Tielemans up to the number 10 role and brought on Dougie Luiz.
Yeah. So you're thinking they've got a Champions League winner coming on, they've got who was the world's most expensive player, and they've got Ian Maatsen, who is very, very fast, a very, very good attacking fullback. And what I noticed was, at this point, Ola had come off because that earlier challenge, he hadn't recovered from it. And so Zach Abbott came on. But then once Maatsen came on, we almost turned into a back 5 with Hutchinson playing as right wing back. And because of that, it's almost like the Nuno when Morato came on last season kind of thing, where actually you could tell we were being pushed back. The ball was very rarely leaving our half, so the fans started making the noise, and it wasn't like a Nuno thing because we did actually try and carry the ball out.
Yeah, and okay, let's just pause there, because there's 2 moments of carrying the ball out that I want to talk about. So number 1, well, there's 3 actually, but the third one we'll come to in a bit. Number 1 that I want to talk about, Morato, who had a very good match today, and he looked like a £15 million defender, which is what he is. And I was just thinking that we've talked a lot about the different approaches, the different head coaches we've had this season. And I'm just thinking that Morato is a kind of player who he needs that little coaching and nurturing.
And he obviously wasn't getting that under the last couple of managers. And the fact that he put in that performance tonight, where he was big, he was strong, he didn't wait for the ball to bounce, and then in, in the last few minutes, he made just a Stuart Pearce-esque run where he just legged it forward, kept the ball at his feet, went all the way into the opposition half, played it forward, and then all the fans and the players were going, Morato, get back.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. They're like, again, levels that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. Then there was, and this frankly should have made the highlights reel, just some absolutely wonderful play down that left-hand channel where the ball was played forward to Morgan on halfway. He did a kind of a half turn where he let the ball go past him, span around his man, still managed to get the energy to get to the ball for it. And then him and Anderson played about 3 1-2s.
Where the 1-2s were like little like back heels to each other. And
I mean, it was like watching FIFA, wasn't it?
yeah. And it deserved a goal, and it wasn't that far off. The ball sort of got into the box, and then I think Konza headed it away, and it went to Amari, and he couldn't. He had 2 on him and couldn't control it. But the way it as you say, it was like an exhibition game. It was like when you watch those old videos of Pele playing in New York or something.
Yeah, it really was. And then the other one that I've kind of thought of as an afterthought is in stoppage time, Nico Dominguez, Forest, of course, pinned back. Dominguez does a run where he gets the ball, he realises there's nothing in front of him, so he runs into that space, gets down to the corner flag, and then he loses the ball because he's outnumbered. And Forest, the ball comes down the other end again. It ends up, I think, a goal kick. And then Anderson's just from the edge of the Forest box is yelling at Dominguez, who's barely made it back to the halfway line because he could barely move after all that running. Again, I think it's really worth pointing out, Dominguez is going to be the unsung hero of that performance to me, because everyone's talking about Gibbs White and Anderson and Wood and Ortega, and rightly so. But Dominguez really put in a shift, and bearing in mind what an important player Sangare is, he was not out-muscled, he was not out-fought, he's not got the size and presence of Sangare, but he was everywhere.
But actually, this is a tactical note from in the first half, especially because it was playing out in front of me. I noticed that we obviously made a tactical choice that both the fullbacks would go forward at the same time. And what would happen was then the 2 centre halves would move across, and then normally it was Dominguez would drop in as a third centre back. So we were basically playing a back 3 when we were in possession. So it was almost like a 3-4-3, 3-2-5 kind of thing.
It was a bit Sabri ball, actually. So very, very happy with the result. But once again, I come away from that thinking, what a great game of football. And the second leg, I mean, this possibly a conversation for another day. There is a concern that we're running out of players, because Aina went off and Zach had to come on and play at right back / right centre back-ish, depending on how you looked at it. Those are our last 4 defenders. We brought on Yatesy late on, and that was for Igor Jesus. And we were about to bring McAtee on, but that was just to kill time in stoppage time. The only other first teamer we had left on the bench, apart from Sells, obviously, was Bakwa. So, we're getting to the B list of players. And the reason we didn't make more subs is because we didn't have more subs, basically. So it remains to be seen what impact that has on team selection for Monday's match against Chelsea. Next week's a bit insane. Monday, Thursday, Sunday, 3 games in 7 days. But we can't let up. And also, there's an argument, isn't there, that you don't feel the fatigue so much when you're on a good run. And that's 9 unbeaten now.
And I think 4 wins in a row. Personally, I'm kind of hoping that Sangare, Ndoye, maybe even Murillo were kind of just held. Jack Cunha more than Murillo. Were kind of held back so that they wouldn't. There's no risk at all for them for Monday. I'm hoping that's the case, because Vitor sort of implied they were all very close to coming back anyway. So maybe that's his little bit of future management kind of thing. But I think, given where we are, I think 2 points would see us safe. I can't see Spurs getting 3 wins.
Fair.
Maybe they could just about squeeze 2, so 2 points would do us. Although the games we've got lined up, especially Chelsea, was looking like we could probably get 3 points there. Maybe that's now changed. But also, when you're this close to a European final, you don't want to throw that away.
You can't not go for it.
Yeah.
And so if we think about that run, so Chelsea, Villa, Newcastle, on paper, Newcastle is the one which is more likely to be a win, isn't it? But equally, we might be down to the bare bones in terms of, if we've got this kind of core of players who are playing, and there's 3 games in a week, then that's the one where we might have to just kind of say, look, we need to just kind of let some players have a rest. On the other hand, again, compared to the schedule we had earlier this season, it's actually felt comparatively calm in many ways.
And don't want to jinx it, but every time we've said this is like a pivotal week in our season, we have come through it. So
yes, and let's hope that in a week's time we have come through it and we are celebrating getting through to a Europa League final. We will be back with a report after the Chelsea match. We will also have a special match preview with a Villa fan coming up in Yates's Espresso Bar next week, and of course we will report back from the second leg at Villa Park. Thank you very much for joining us. It felt like a special night. Come on, you Reds.
You've been listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps other listeners find our content.